Imagine the year is 1990. You're 7 years old. You got $13 in your piggy bank and a Spawn comic that's going to be worth so much money you'll have your own fleet of cruise ships in the future. You rented the Dick Tracy Sega game from Blockbuster, and you're about to watch the movie in theaters that night. I mean, you're about to watch a cinematic masterpiece starring Madonna. I mean, she's the woman who invented sex. Dick Van Dyke as the mayor? This movie is stacked with talent. Al Pacino from that movie your Uncle Frank wouldn't let you watch, but you totally watched it when no one was around. You know this is going to be the first film in a series. After all, not every movie gets a video game adaptation. They're going to make like 10 of these. You watch the film that night in your world, it's the greatest thing you have ever seen. You think, how lucky is Dick Tracy Jr.? To your 7-year-old mind, this is the greatest film. The best film in the world has just been made. Everyone else is just trying for second place. The next day at the monkey bars, you know, where proper adult business is discussed, you find out a few of your other friends at school also saw the movie. Billy says it was okay. Zach says it wasn't anything special. You're confused. They had seen a different film, right? Didn't they read that month's issue of Mad Magazine all about how cool this movie was going to be? How could they think Dick Tracy was just okay? I'm now almost 40 years old, and I'm still wondering that question. I collect memorabilia from the 90s Dick Tracy film. I have lunch boxes, video games, comic books. I even have a yo-yo. The oddest thing I own is a coffee cup shaped like Madonna's head. This movie was supposed to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. Warren Beatty's passion project to play one of the funny page's greatest heroes of all time. Chester Gould created Dick Tracy in 1931, originally wanting to name the strip Plain Clothes Tracy to emphasize the cop aspect of the character. The publisher said Dick Tracy's better for marketing purposes. I can't undersell how important or cool Dick Tracy was in the 1930s. The first Dick Tracy film came out in 1945. Before Warren Beatty's film, there were 8 other movies. It's clear Warren Beatty loved these films, as actor Mike Mazurek, who played Splitface in 1945's Dick Tracy, was also cast in Beatty's 1990 film. For most of my life, I've been saying the 90s Dick Tracy is one of the best films ever made. Not only does it respect what came before, but they go all out with respecting the comic book medium, sticking to the 4-color limitations of the early printing processes. Every set or costume is set in the 4-color palette. Imagine that. A comic book movie that actually looks like the comic book. Mr. Beatty, I don't think we'll ever meet, or that you'll even see this, but I just want to say thank you. I love comic books. They're kind of my religion, and you showed the art form respect when you didn't need to. And for that, I want to say thank you. So what happened? Dick Tracy cost $46 million. That's Clinton $90, by the way. The movie made $162 million. Well, every story needs a villain, and when talking about Disney at this time, the villain is always going to be Jeffrey Katzenberg. If you don't know who Jeffrey Katzenberg is, look up asshole in the dictionary. This is the man who edited The Black Cauldron for being too scary. Because the film's opening weekend did not match that of Batman's from the year before, Katzenberg wrote the film off as a loss. After Dick Tracy, Katzenberg would write a memo to all the executives in the studio called The Problem. I'd like to remind you, Dick Tracy made money. Katzenberg would go on to basically blame Warren Beatty and use this opportunity to take power away from the directors. Disney would move toward a model where the executives would have more creative power than the directors. Remember, Katzenberg already didn't trust directors. He was already willing to overstep his bounds and edit somebody else's film. In the memo, Katzenberg said Dick Tracy had cost about $100 million total to produce, market, and promote. We made demands on our time, talent, and treasury that upon reflection may not have been worth it. From the bottom of my heart, fuck you, Katzenberg. So, that's it. This artistic masterpiece is remembered as a bomb because its opening weekend didn't match Batman's. Well, this film blew my little brain as a child. It introduced me to a much bigger world. Film noir is my favorite genre. I go back to watch this at least once a year. There aren't that many comic book films that I still go back to after all this time. My own comic book series, Flatfoot McGee, is heavily inspired by Dick Tracy. Sexy nightclub singers, mob bosses, bright colors. This movie made a huge impact on me. After all these years, I still don't understand how other people don't love this film the way I do. I guess you just had to be there in the 90s.